The storm hit the docks just as she stepped off the ferry. Rain slicked the wooden planks and turned the horizon into a wall of gray. To anyone watching, she was just another drifter, a woman in a weathered leather jacket, duffel bag slung over one shoulder, boots clicking against wet wood. But her eyes told a different story. Eyes like that didn't wander without purpose. They'd seen things that left marks deeper than scars. They'd watched good men die. They'd made choices that haunted the space between heartbeats. She walked toward the naval checkpoint with the same calm stride one might use walking into a grocery store, except her destination wasn't for the faint-hearted. Naval Base Coronado, home of the U.S. Navy SEALs. The rain intensified. Thunder rolled across the Pacific like artillery fire. She didn't quicken her pace, didn't seek shelter, just kept walking one boot in front of the other toward a place she'd sworn she'd never see again. 7 years ago, she'd walked through these same gates for the first time. 21 years old, fresh out of Bud's training, selected for something that didn't officially exist. She'd been so young then, so certain the world made sense, so convinced that doing the right thing mattered. The woman walking toward those gates now was 28. The 7 years between felt like 70. Security noticed her immediately, a civilian trying to access restricted military property that was always suspicious. But this one had something else about her, something in the way she moved, the way her eyes tracked every vehicle, every patrol route, every sightline without seeming to look at anything at all. "Ma'am, stop right there." The guard stepped forward, hand resting on his sidearm. Not threatening, not yet, just ready. She stopped. Rain ran down her face. She didn't wipe it away. "This is a restricted area. You need authorization to proceed." Slowly, deliberately, she reached into her jacket. The guard's hand tightened on his weapon. She produced a military ID card worn at the edge's laminated surface, scratched from years of use. The guard took it, studied it under his flashlight. His frown deepened. "This ID expired 3 years ago." He looked up at her. "You can't check the credentials." Her voice was quiet, steady, the voice of someone who'd given orders under fire. "Then call your CO." Before he could respond, 2 military police officers approached from behind. One of them whispered something into his radio. His expression hardened, changed. The professional courtesy evaporated. "That's enough," the taller MP said, gripping her arm. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for impersonating a naval officer, specifically a Navy SEAL. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." She didn't resist, didn't argue, didn't explain. In fact, she almost looked relieved. As they cuffed her hands behind her back and led her toward the security building, young recruits stopped to watch. Female recruits mostly, running morning PT in the rain. They stared as the MPs walked her past. One whispered to another, "Stolen valor. Pathetic." The woman in cuffs heard it. Her jaw tightened. But she kept walking. Some truths were too classified to defend. The interrogation room smelled of bleach and damp concrete. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows that made everyone look sick. A steel table bolted to the floor. 2 chairs, one-way mirror taking up most of the back wall. She sat in the chair facing the mirror, hands still cuffed. Water dripped from her jacket onto the concrete floor. Drip, drip, drip. The only sound in the room besides the electrical hum. The door opened. Commander Vincent Hale entered. 48 years old, 26 years in the Navy, 20 of those with the teams. He had the look of a man who'd spent his youth doing things that aged him faster than the calendar suggested. Gray threaded through his buzz cut, lines around his eyes from squinting through rifle scopes in desert sun, hands scarred from rope work and breaching charges. He carried a file folder. Thin, not much in it. He sat across from her and studied her for a long moment, taking in the details. The way she held herself despite the cuffs, the controlled breathing, the stillness that wasn't nervousness, but rather complete self-possession. "You're telling me you were a SEAL?" His voice carried the particular skepticism of a man who'd earned the trident and knew exactly what it cost. She met his eyes, didn't blink, didn't look away. "I'm not telling you anything, Commander. I'm waiting for someone with the clearance to have this conversation." Hale's jaw tightened. "We've checked every record. There's no female on any SEAL team roster during your claimed service years. None. That's because those records are classified beyond your clearance level. Convenient. He leaned forward. You know what's funny? We get wannabes all the time. Guys who read books, memorize some lingo, maybe even get a fake trident tattoo. But you, he paused, you didn't make a single rookie mistake in your terminology when they processed you. That's impressive. But impressive doesn't make it true. She said nothing. Her gaze drifted to the one-way mirror. Someone was watching. Multiple someones probably. Making calls, checking databases, trying to figure out who she really was. Let them look. They wouldn't find what they were searching for, not in any system they had access to. Hale opened the file folder. Says here you claim to have completed BUDS training in 2015. Walk me through Hell Week. No, excuse me? I'm not performing for you, Commander. Either get someone with appropriate clearance in here or charge me and let JAG sort it out. Hale's eyes narrowed. You're facing federal charges. Impersonating a military officer is serious. Stolen valor carries penalties you don't want to think about. I know exactly what the penalties are. I also know you're stalling while someone runs my biometrics through classified databases. She tilted her head slightly. How long until they hit the firewall? Something flickered in Hale's expression. Uncertainty. She touched a nerve. Let's try something else, he said. BUDS Hell Week Day 4. What happens? She exhaled slowly. You're testing me. You said you were there. A pause, then she spoke, her voice distant, remembering. Day 4 is surf torture. Winter cycle water temperature 58 degrees Fahrenheit. Hypothermia sets in at 90 minutes. Instructors rotate you out at 87 minutes. They time it precisely, punishment without liability. The cold doesn't just hurt. It rewrites your nervous system. Makes you understand that pain is just information. That your body can endure what your mind thinks will kill you. Hale's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted. She was too specific, too accurate. Anyone can read that online, he said. Drown-proofing evolution. They changed the protocol in 2011 after a near fatality. Now it's hands and feet bound, but they added a safety diver at 8-foot depth. You wouldn't know that unless you were there post-2011. Hale sat back, studied her with new intensity. What about weapons? She almost smiled. Almost. Be specific, Commander. The rifle in the photo behind you. He gestured to the wall where a framed image showed a SEAL team in full kit. Tell me about that weapon. She didn't turn to look. She'd already cataloged everything in the room within seconds of entering. HK-416, 10.4-inch barrel gas piston operating system. With that AAC suppressor, you're looking at sound reduction from 167 decibels to approximately 140. Still loud enough to cause permanent hearing damage without protection, but quiet enough to maintain auditory awareness in close quarters. The suppressor also reduces muzzle flash, which matters more than the sound signature in night operations. Hale's poker face cracked, just slightly. Lucky guess. The ammunition in the standard loadout for that configuration is 5.56mm MK-262 Mod 1, 77 grain open tip match. Muzzle velocity around 2750 feet per second. Optimized for barrels between 10.5 and 14.5 inches. Better terminal ballistics than M855, especially at ranges beyond 300 meters. It became standard issue for certain units between 2010 and 2015. She leaned forward, cuffs rattling against the chair. That specific ammunition was classified during those years, Commander. The civilian market didn't have access to performance specs. So either I memorized highly classified technical data from sources that would themselves be classified, or she held his gaze. I used it. Hale stood abruptly, walked to the one-way mirror, stared at his own reflection, at whoever was watching from the other side. Who are you, he asked quietly. Someone you don't have clearance to know about. He turned back to her. Everyone leaves traces, records, documentation. If you really were a SEAL, there would be something. There was. Her voice carried weight now. Finality. Then it was erased, deliberately, completely, by someone with the authority to make people disappear from history. Why? Because sometimes the missions matter more than the people who run them. Because sometimes the only way to protect an operation is to bury everyone involved. She paused. Because dead operators don't ask questions. And officially, that's what I am. Dead. Hale opened his mouth to respond, but the door opened before he could speak. A younger officer stuck his head in. "Commander, you're needed outside, now!" The urgency in his voice made Hale move. He glanced back at her once before leaving. She sat alone in the room, listening to the rain against the small window near the ceiling, counting the drips of water from her jacket, breathing slowly, evenly, the way she'd been trained. The door opened again minutes later. This time the man who entered changed everything. The room seemed to shrink around him. Not because of his physical size, he was average height, lean build, the kind of frame that came from decades of disciplined PT rather than gym vanity. But his presence was something else entirely. A storm contained in human form. He wore the service dress blue uniform. His ribbons could have filled a wall. Silver eagles on his collar. The weight of command in every deliberate movement. Rear Admiral Nathaniel Carver, 64 years old, 42 years of service. A career that had taken him from the teams to the Pentagon and back. A man who'd made decisions that saved lives and cost them. Who'd sent young men and women into places where they might not return. Who carried those choices like stones in his pockets. The MPs who'd followed him in snapped to attention. Hale, who'd re-entered behind the Admiral, stood rigid. Carver's eyes locked on the woman in cuffs. His face betrayed nothing. But something flickered in those eyes. Recognition. Memory. Something that might have been grief. "Ease," he said. His voice was quiet but carried absolute authority. The kind of voice you didn't question, didn't argue with, just obeyed. He looked at the MPs. "Remove the cuffs." Hale stepped forward. "Sir, she's..." "Do it." The cuffs clicked open. She brought her hands forward, slowly rubbing her wrists where the metal had left red marks. She didn't take her eyes off Carver. Carver walked around the table, stopped directly in front of her. For a long moment, neither spoke. The room held its breath. "Stand up," he said. Not an order, a request. She stood. "Roll up your left sleeve." Her jaw tightened. This was it. The moment that would either validate everything or condemn her as the fraud they thought she was. She unbuttoned her cuff, rolled the sleeve up slowly past her wrist, past her forearm, to just below her elbow. There, inked into her skin, was a tattoo that no faker would dare replicate. Not the standard SEAL trident that thousands of operators wore with pride. This was different. A trident, yes, but modified. Unique. 7 small stars arranged around it, each one representing something that couldn't be spoken aloud. Inkwork that had been done by hand, not in a shop. The kind of tattoo given in field conditions with improvised equipment. Carver stared at it for a long moment. His hands, steady as stone for 4 decades, trembled slightly. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "That tattoo's authentic." Hale blinked. "Sir, what are you saying?" Carver looked at him sharply, the full weight of his rank and experience in that gaze. "I'm saying this woman isn't impersonating anyone. She is who she says she is." He turned back to her. Her name wasn't on any official roster because the unit she served with doesn't officially exist. The missions she ran were never authorized by Congress. The operations she participated in will remain classified for the next 75 years. He reached out, fingers hovering over the tattoo but not quite touching. "I gave her this tattoo myself 8 years ago, in a medical tent in Syria, after a mission that officially never happened, after she pulled one of her teammates out of a compound while under heavy fire, after she watched 2 other teammates die." The room was absolutely silent. Carver stepped back, looked at Hale. "Clear the room. Everyone out. Now." The MPs left immediately. Hale hesitated, looking between the Admiral and the woman, trying to process what he'd just heard. "Commander," Carver said, "that means you too." Hale left, the door closed behind him with a heavy metallic thud. Carver and the woman stood facing each other, 7 years and 1,000 unspoken things between them. He pulled out the chair across from her, sat down heavily. Suddenly he looked every one of his 64 years. "I thought you'd never come back," he said quietly. She sat down across from him. "I wouldn't have if I had a choice." "What happened?" She reached into her jacket slowly so he could see she wasn't reaching for a weapon, and produced a small waterproof envelope, slid it across the table. Carver opened it. Inside were photographs, satellite imagery, intelligence reports printed on paper instead of viewed on classified networks. The kind of intel that came from sources that couldn't be officially acknowledged. His face went pale as he studied the images. "That's not possible," he whispered. "We confirmed. You confirmed what they wanted you to confirm." Her voice was steady, but underneath it ran a current of something else. Pain, guilt, determination. "I've been tracking intel for 18 months. He's alive, Admiral, and he's in enemy hands." Carver set down the photos, ran a hand over his face. For a moment, he looked lost. Then he straightened, the weight of command settling back onto his shoulders. "Tell me everything." She took a deep breath and began to talk about Syria, about 2020, about the mission that ended everything. Her voice was quiet, measured, the tone of someone reciting facts she'd gone over 10,000 times in her own mind. Project Sentinel, that's what you called it. The experimental unit that didn't exist. 12 candidates pulled from the regular teams. Operators who'd already proven themselves but who fit a specific psychological profile. People who could compartmentalize, who could operate in absolute isolation, who wouldn't break under the weight of complete deniability. Carver nodded slowly. Only 7 made it through the selection process. I was the youngest, 21 years old, fresh out of Bud AS. You pulled me aside one day and asked if I understood what it meant to serve without recognition, without records, without anyone ever knowing what I'd done. She paused. I said yes. I was 21. I thought I understood. You were exceptional, Carver said quietly. Best tactical instincts I'd seen in 20 years. But more than that, you had something else. Adaptability, the ability to read situations and people, to make the right call under pressure. Until Syria. The words hung in the air like smoke. Carver's jaw tightened. Syria wasn't your fault. Wasn't it? Her eyes were hard now, challenging him. I was second in command. Cole was team leader, but I made the call. I chose who lived and who got left behind. You made the only call you could make. Did I? She stood abruptly, walked to the small window, rain still sheeted against it. Every night for 4 years, I've run that scenario. Every possible variation. Every different choice. And you know what I realize? I don't know if I made the right call. I just know I made a call. And 2 men died because of it. Carver stood as well, walked over to stand beside her. They both stared out at the rain. Tell me what happened, he said. All of it. Not the sanitized report I got. The truth. She was quiet for a moment. Then she began. February 2020, 4-person team. Mission was straightforward on paper: extract a high-value target from an ISIS compound outside Raqqa. Intelligence said light security, quick in and out. We'd done a dozen missions like it. Cole was team leader, Lieutenant Cole Merrick, 32 years old, 9 years in the teams. Best CQB operator I ever worked with. Calm under pressure. Made decisions like he had all the time in the world, even right when he had seconds. Petty Officer David Ashford, call sign preacher. Not because he was religious, but because he could talk his way into or out of anything. Our comms specialist, 30 years old, had a wife and a daughter back in Virginia Beach. Chief Petty Officer Garrett Blackwood, 32, point man, had this way of moving through spaces like he could see around corners. Saved my life twice in training. I'd saved his once in Afghanistan. And me, Captain Evelyn Thorne, 25 years old, second in command, designated marksman, tactical planning, the one who was supposed to make sure everyone came home. Her voice cracked slightly on the last sentence. Insertion was clean. Halo jumped from 28,000 feet. Hit the ground 3 kilometers from the target. Moved through the night like we'd done it 1,000 times. Reached the compound just before sunrise. Everything according to plan. We breached at 0400, suppressed fire, controlled entries, room by room. The HVT was exactly where Intel said he'd be. We had him secured and were moving to exfil when everything went sideways. She closed her eyes, remembering. They were waiting for us, not at the breach point, not in the compound, but along our exfil route. Someone had sold us out, fed us good intel to get us in, then set up an ambush to make sure we never got out. RPGs, heavy machine gun fire. They hit us from three sides. Cole took point trying to break through the perimeter. He was God. He was magnificent, calm, steady, directing fire, finding us a way out. Then he saw the RPG team lining up another shot, saw the angle, realized it would hit right where I was. He moved, stepped into the line of fire. The round hit him center mass. Her hands clenched into fists. Preacher was hit seconds later. RPG fragment through his left leg, shattered his femur. He went down screaming. Garrett dragged him to cover. I was laying down, suppressing fire burning through magazines. The HVT was dead hit by stray rounds. Mission was blown. We just needed to get out. But Preacher couldn't move. Garrett was trying to carry him, but we were taking too much fire. Every second we stayed, the noose tightened. Enemy reinforcements closing from the north. We had maybe 60 seconds before they cut off the exfil entirely. Preacher looked at me. Blood everywhere, leg mangled. He knew. He knew what I was looking at, what I was calculating. He said, her voice broke. He said, "Get Reed out. That's an order." Used his real name, not his call sign, like he was already saying goodbye. I grabbed Garrett, started dragging him toward the exfil point. He fought me, tried to go back for Preacher. I had to hit him, knocked him half unconscious just to get him moving. We made it to the exfil. The helo was taking fire. We loaded. I looked back one last time. Preacher was still alive, on the ground, enemy moving toward him. He looked at me, gave me a nod, like he understood, like he forgave me. 48 hours later, they posted the video, him on his knees, ISIS flag behind him. They read their statement. Then she couldn't finish. Didn't need to. Carver's hand found her shoulder. Squeezed once. Understanding. I woke up in a hospital 3 days later. You were there. You told me the mission was classified. The team was being dissolved. Project Sentinel was over, and I was being erased from all records. For operational security, for deniability, for all the political reasons that matter more than the people who die. You gave me a new identity. Papers, money, told me to disappear, said it was for my own protection, that there were people who wanted Sentinel buried with everyone who knew about it. So I disappeared, became a ghost, spent 4 years in the shadows, and every single day I thought about Preacher, about Cole, about the choice I made, about whether I could have saved them, whether I should have. She turned to face Carver directly. Then 6 months ago I picked up a signal, intercepted comms, satellite imagery from a compound near the North Korean border, and I saw him. She pulled another photo from her jacket, handed it to Carver. Garrett, alive. Carver stared at the image. It showed a prisoner being moved between buildings, emaciated, beaten. But the facial recognition was 73% matched despite the damage. And there on his visible forearm was the edge of a trident tattoo. My God, Carver whispered, they've had him for 4 years, interrogating him, torturing him, trying to break him to get information about Sentinel, about our operations, about classified mission parameters. How do you know he hasn't broken? Because if he had, this facility would be empty. They'd have what they wanted. They're keeping him alive because he hasn't given them what they need. Because Garrett Blackwood is the toughest son of a bitch I ever met, and he's been holding out for 4 years. Her eyes were fierce now, determined. But according to my intel, they're done being patient. In 14 days, they're going to permanently disappear him, which is a nice way of saying they're going to execute him and dump his body where no one will ever find it. Carver set down the photo, looked at her, really looked at her, saw the 21-year-old kid who'd walked into his office 8 years ago, eyes bright with idealism. Saw the 28-year-old woman standing before him now, forged in fire and guilt and determination. What are you asking me, Captain? I'm not asking for anything, Admiral. I'm telling you what I'm going to do, with or without your help, with or without your permission. I'm going to get Garrett out, because I left Preacher behind. I left Cole's body in Syria. But I'm not leaving Garrett. Not again. Not ever. An unsanctioned rescue mission into hostile territory against an enemy that's been planning for this exact scenario, that's suicide. Probably. If you fail, it'll expose Sentinel. Everything we did, every mission, every operator still alive. They'll all be compromised, targeted. I know. If I help you, if I provide resources, personnel support, it'll end my career. Court-martial at minimum, prison at maximum. Everything I've built for 42 years gone. I know. She paused. That's why I'm not asking you to help. I'm asking you not to stop me. Carver walked back to the table, sat down heavily, stared at his hands. Hands that had pulled triggers and signed orders and carried the weight of impossible decisions. I erased you to protect you, he said quietly. There was a purge coming. Politicians wanted Sentinel buried. Everyone involved. I had a choice: sacrifice everyone or save who I could. I chose to save you, to save, to let you disappear, to give you a chance at a life. And I've spent 4 years in hell because of it. I know. He looked up at ear. Do you want to know the truth? The real truth, I didn't just erase you to protect you. I erased you because I couldn't face what I'd done. Because I sent your team into that mission knowing the intel was questionable. Because I prioritized the objective over your safety. Because when Cole died and Preacher was captured, I couldn't live with having you around as a reminder. His voice was raw now, honest. I loved that team like they were my children. Cole, Preacher, Garrett, you were the best operators I ever commanded. And I got 2 of them killed. So I erased you because it was easier than looking at you every day and remembering what I'd cost us all. Silence, heavy and profound. Evelyn walked over, stood in front of him. When she spoke, her voice was soft but carried steel underneath. Then help me fix it. Help me bring Garrett home. Not because it'll absolve us, not because it'll make the guilt go away, but because it's the right thing to do. Because we owe him. Because no one else is coming for him. Carver looked up at her, saw the determination, the fire, the same qualities that had made her exceptional 8 years ago. He thought about his career, 42 years of service, the ribbons on his chest, the respect of his peers, everything he'd built. Then he thought about Garrett Blackwood, 32 years old when he'd been captured, 36 now, 4 years of torture, holding out, waiting, hoping someone would come. The decision wasn't really a decision at all. If we do this, he said slowly, it stays completely black. No official authorization, no backup, no rescue if things go wrong. Just us and whoever I can pull together without raising flags. I understand. You'll be operating without support, without exfil guarantee. If you are captured, I can't acknowledge you exist. I've been operating that way for 4 years. Carver stood, extended his hand. Then let's bring our man home. She took his hand, felt the weight of the commitment, the promise, the oath. Thank you, Admiral. Don't thank me yet, Captain. We might both hang for this. Some things are worth hanging for. He almost smiled, almost. Get yourself dried off and fed. Meet me at Building 7 at 2200 hours. I need to make some calls, pull in some favors, find us a team. She nodded, started toward the door. Captain. She turned back. For what it's worth, I never stopped believing in you. Never stopped thinking about all of you. Every single day for 4 years, I've wondered if I made the right choice. If I should have fought harder to keep Sentinel alive. To protect all of you. The past is done, Admiral. All we have now is forward. Forward, he agreed. She left. The door closed behind her. Carver stood alone in the interrogation room, stared at the photo of Garrett Blackwood, at the evidence of 4 years of suffering, at the reminder of what his choices had cost. He pulled out his phone, started making calls, each one burning a bridge, calling in favors that couldn't be repaid, setting in motion something that would either save a life or destroy everything he'd ever built. Outside, the rain continued to fall. The storm showed no signs of stopping. Neither did they. 2200 hours. Building 7 sat at the far edge of the base away from the main training facilities. The kind of building that didn't appear on official maps, where briefings happened that never made it into reports, where decisions were made that Congress would never vote on. Evelyn arrived 10 minutes early. Old habits. She changed into dry clothes, dark tactical pants, black long-sleeve shirt boots that had seen better days but still had miles left in them. Her hair was pulled back tight, no jewelry. Nothing that could catch or reflect light. The building was dark except for a single room on the second floor. She climbed the external stairs. The door was unlocked. Inside, Admiral Carver stood at a large table covered with maps and satellite imagery. Three other men waited in the shadows. She felt their eyes on her immediately, assessing, judging, deciding if she was worth following into hell. Carver looked up. "Captain Thorne, come in." She entered. The door closed behind her with a finality that felt like sealing a tomb. "Gentlemen," Carver said, "this is Captain Evelyn Thorne, Ghost, former Project Sentinel. She's the mission commander for this operation." One of the men stepped forward into the light. 41 years old, medium-build, weathered-faced hands that moved with the careful precision of someone trained in trauma medicine. His eyes were intelligent, analytical, and deeply skeptical. "Petty Officer First Class Daniel Callahan," Carver introduced, "combat medic. 2 tours, Iraq, 3 Afghanistan. If someone gets hit, he's the one who decides if they live or die." Callahan studied Evelyn with unconcealed doubt. "No offense, ma'am, but I've never operated with a female." The room tensed, waiting for her response, testing how she'd handle the challenge. Evelyn met his eyes calmly. "Then let me show you why I'm still alive, after 8 years of doing things that should have killed me." She moved to the table, pointed to the medical kit laid out among the equipment. "Combat trauma, sucking chest wound, walk me through treatment." Callahan's jaw tightened. "3-sided occlusive dressing." "Why 3-sided?" "To prevent tension pneumothorax. Seal all 4 sides, trapped air collapses the lung in under 90 seconds. "Correct. Now tell me the field expedient alternative when you don't have a chest seal." Callahan paused. This wasn't textbook material. Evelyn continued without waiting. "Cellophane wrapper from an MRE packet, 100 monomer tape. You can create a functional chest seal in 15 seconds. But here's what they don't teach in medic school. You have to apply it during exhalation. Time it wrong, tape it during inhalation. You trap air in the pleural space. Patient dies anyway, just slower." She picked up a tourniquet from the kit. TQ7, windlass design. Standard application is 6 inches above the wound. But in winter conditions, hypothermia becomes a factor. "Do you place the tourniquet over clothing or against skin?" Callahan thought. "Against skin. Better pressure application." "Wrong. Winter operations, you place it over the clothing. The fabric provides insulation. You expose skin to apply a tourniquet in sub-freezing temperatures, you're adding frostbite trauma to bleeding trauma. Patient goes into shock faster. I've seen it happen. To Crete 2013, my medic went down. I had to work on him while suppressing enemy fire. He lived because I understood the variables they don't put in manuals." Oh, Callahan's expression shifted. Still skeptical, but the edge had dulled. "Where'd you learn that?" "Doing it, under fire, when the person bleeding is someone you'd die for." She held his gaze. "I'm not asking you to like me, petty officer. I'm asking you to trust that I know what I'm doing, that I've earned my place on this team, and that when things go sideways, and they will, I'll make the calls that keep us all alive." Callahan was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Okay, I'm in." Another man stepped forward, 38 years old, lean and rangy with the permanent squint of someone who had spent years looking through rifle scopes. His movements were economical, controlled the mark of a professional who measured everything in millimeters and seconds. "Chief Petty Officer Marcus Brennan," Carver said. "Gout sniper, 87 confirmed kills. If you need someone dead at 1,000 meters, he's your man." Brennan's eyes were cold, professional. "Let's talk ballistics, Captain." Evelyn smiled. She'd been waiting for this one. "Your preferred caliber, .338 Lapua Magnum. Projectile weight, 250 grain Sierra Match King. Ballistic coefficient, .670. Evelyn moved to the map, pointed to the target compound. "We're inserting here. 4,000 feet elevation. Winter conditions estimate 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Your primary position will be approximately 400 meters from the compound. 15-mile-per-hour crosswind from the west. Target is moving approximately 3 miles per hour. Calculate your hold." Brennan's eyes narrowed. This was the real test. The math that separated amateurs from professionals. At 400 meters drop, compensation is 2.1 mils. But at 4,000 feet elevation, air density is roughly 10% less than sea level. That reduces drag flattens trajectory. Actual drop is 1.9 mils. Wind deflection at 400 meters with 15 mile per hour crosswind is approximately 1.2 mils right. But we need to account for the Coriolis effect at this latitude. Northern hemisphere target moving east to west. Add zero point 0.1 mils right. Temperature is critical. Standard ballistic tables assume 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Every 20-degree drop reduces muzzle velocity by approximately 1%. 30-degree ambient means 40-degree temperature differential. 2% velocity loss. That adds roughly 0.2 mils to the hold. He looked at Evelyn. Total hold 2.1 mils up 1.5 mils right. Led the moving target by 0.3 mils. First round probability of hit 87%. Evelyn's smile widened. You forgot one variable. Brennan frowned. What? Powder temperature. Your ammunition has been sitting in sub-freezing conditions for the 12-hour insert. Cold powder burns slower. Reduces muzzle velocity by an additional 3%. Your actual hold needs another zero point 0.3 mils elevation compensation. Without that correction, you're hitting low. Might wound instead of kill. In our operational environment, wounded enemies create more problems than dead ones. Brennan stared at her. Then slowly, grudgingly, his expression changed. Respect replacing skepticism. Damn, he said quietly, you've done this. 87 shots, 87 hits, different circumstances than yours. Same physics, same math, same understanding that details matter more than talent. Brennan extended his hand. I'd be honored to serve with you, Captain. She shook it. The honor is mine, Chief. The third man stepped forward. 34 years old, built like a boxer, compact and powerful. His hands were scarred from years of working with explosives. He moved with the careful confidence of someone who understood that one mistake could vaporize everyone in a 50-meter radius. Senior Chief Petty Officer Ryan Sullivan, Carver introduced. Breacher, explosive ordnance specialist. Doors, walls, vehicles. If it needs to open, he makes it happen. Sullivan didn't test her, didn't challenge. He just nodded with something approaching reverence. I heard about Ghost, he said. Urban legend in the teams, operator who could move through hostile territory like she was invisible, who made impossible shots, who brought her people home no matter what. He paused. I thought you were a myth. I'm honored you're real. But then his expression darkened. Ma'am, I need to ask. Syria, is it true you left men behind? The room went silent. Callahan and Brennan tensed. Carver's hand moved slightly, ready to intervene. Evelyn met Sullivan's eyes directly. No flinching, no deflecting. Yes, Lieutenant Cole Merrick and Petty Officer David Ashford. Cole died protecting me from an RPG. Preacher was captured because I chose to extract Chief Blackwood instead of staying to fight for him. I've lived with that decision every day for 4 years. I dream about it every night. I wake up and the first thing I think about is whether I made the right choice, whether I could have saved them both, whether I should have died trying. Her voice was steady, but the pain underneath was evident, raw, honest. So yes, I left men behind, and I'll carry that for the rest of my life, which is exactly why I'll never do it again. Why I'm here, why I'm willing to risk everything to bring Garrett home. Because I understand what it costs to leave someone, and I won't pay that price twice. Sullivan held her gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded. That's good enough for me. I'm in. Carver stepped forward. We're all in. Now let's plan how we're going to do the impossible. They gathered around the table. 4 operators and an admiral who'd just committed treason. Maps and satellite imagery spread before them like a battle plan drawn in 2 dimensions that would be fought in 3. Evelyn took point. This was her mission, her plan, her responsibility. Target location. She indicated the satellite image. Compound approximately 80 kilometers inside hostiles' territory. Mountainous terrain, winter conditions, heavy guard presence. This isn't a prison. It's an intelligence facility designed specifically to hold high-value prisoners and extract information. She pulled up detailed reconnaissance photos. 12-man quick reaction force, 4-hour rotating shifts, 2 guard towers with overlapping fields of fire, roving patrols on irregular patterns, motion sensors along the perimeter. This place was built to prevent exactly what we're attempting. Callahan studied the images. How do we know Blackwood is even there? Evelyn produced more photos. Grainy but clear enough. A prisoner being moved between buildings. Emaciated. Beaten. But visible on his forearm was the edge of a tattoo. A trident. Facial recognition is 73% match despite the physical damage. But I'd know him anywhere. That's Garrett. How current is this intel? Brennan asked. 6 days old, but I've been tracking signals intelligence. He's still there, still alive. But according to intercepted communications, he's scheduled for transfer in 14 days. Transfer is military speak for permanent disappearance. We have a 2-week window. After that, he's gone forever. Sullivan leaned in. Entry points. 3 possibilities. Evelyn indicated each on the map. Front gate, obvious heavily defended suicide. East wall, reinforced concrete, would require significant explosive breaching, too loud. Or here, she pointed to a small drainage culvert. 28 inches in diameter, barely large enough for a person with full kit. But it's unguarded because they assume no one can fit. Can we fit? Callahan asked. I can, alone. I infiltrate, locate Gary, confirm his condition, then signal you for extraction. Brennan shook his head. That puts you inside alone. If you're compromised, we can't get to you. If I'm compromised, the mission is over anyway. This works because they're not expecting a solo infiltration. They're prepared for a team assault, not for one person moving like a ghost. Carver spoke up. Timeline. 18-minute window between guard rotations. I enter at 0200 hours when shift change occurs. Fatigue is highest, attention is lowest. I have 18 minutes to infiltrate, locate Garrett, and get to the extraction point before the next patrol cycle. That's impossibly tight, Sullivan said. It has to be. Any longer and we're exposed. Quick reaction force response time is approximately 8 minutes. We need to be in and out before they can organize a proper response. And she pulled out another set of documents. Equipment lists, meticulously detailed. Loadout, primary weapons HK-416 with surefire suppressors. Why HK over M4 gas piston system versus direct impingement? In sub-freezing conditions, the piston system runs cleaner, more reliable. We can't afford malfunctions. Barrel length 10.4 inches. Optimized for close quarters, but maintains effective range to 400 meters. With the suppressor, we reduce sound signature from 167 decibels to 127. Still loud, but quiet enough to maintain tactical advantage. Ammunition 5.56mm MK262 Mod 1. 77 grain open tip match. This is critical. Standard M855 ball ammunition performs poorly from short barrels. MK262 maintains terminal ballistics at range. Each operator carries 7 magazines, 30 rounds each. 210 rounds total. That sounds like a lot until you're in a firefight and burning through magazines every 30 seconds. Brennan was nodding, recognizing the expertise in every detail. Sidearms Glock 19 Gen 4. Why Glock reliability in extreme conditions. Loaded with 147 grain Federal HST subsonic ammunition. 990 feet per second muzzle velocity. Stays subsonic, no sonic crack. If we need to use pistols, we need to stay quiet. Breaching equipment. She looked at Sullivan. Linear-shaped charges for precision cutting. 400 grain det cord for door frames. We're not announcing our presence with massive explosions. Surgical entries only. Sullivan pulled the charges toward him, examining them with professional appreciation. These will work. Minimal overpressure, maximum cut efficiency. I can rig doors in under 30 seconds. Medical, Evelyn indicated the trauma kit. TQ7 tourniquets, quick clot combat gauze, chest seals, hypothermia prevention supplies. We're operating in winter conditions. Exposure kills as fast as bullets. Everyone carries chemical heat packs and thermal blankets. Navigation and communication ANPRC 152 radios with encrypted frequencies. GPS units with backup mechanical compasses. We plan for electronics failure. Always have analog backup. Carver had been listening silently. Now he spoke. Insertion method. Evelyn pulled out the insertion plan. Halo jump, high altitude, low opening. It's the only way to insert without detection. She moved to a whiteboard, started drawing diagrams and writing calculations. Exit altitude 28,000 feet. At that altitude, we need supplemental oxygen. 4 liters per minute flow rate per operator. Jump master checks each oxygen system before exit. One failure means one operator doesn't jump. We don't compromise for equipment failure. Free fall distance, 24,500 feet. At terminal velocity with full combat load, that's approximately 90 seconds of free fall. Standard terminal velocity is 130 miles per hour. But with our equipment weight figure 120 miles per hour, weight changes everything. Brennan was following the math, nodding. Canopy deployment at 3,500 feet above ground level. MC-6 Ram air parachutes. These give us an 8-to-1 glide ratio, meaning for every foot of altitude we can travel 8 feet horizontally. From 3,500 feet, we can fly approximately 4 miles from our deployment point to the landing zone. That's our stealth advantage. We exit over neutral territory, fly into hostile airspace under canopy. By the time we're visible, we're already on the ground. Weather is critical. She pulled up meteorological data. Forecast shows 25-knot winds at altitude. That's borderline for jumping, but within operational parameters. However, wind drift becomes significant. 90 seconds of free fall in 25-knot winds equals, she calculated quickly, approximately 3,700 feet of drift. We exit 3,700 feet upwind of our intended free fall endpoint. GPS tracks us during descent, but we need to account for drift in our exit point calculation. Sullivan was impressed despite himself. You've planned this down to the minute and down to the second, Evelyn corrected, because that's all we'll have. Seconds. The difference between success and catastrophic failure measured in heartbeats. She laid out the final piece. The timeline. H hour is 0200. At H-12 hours, we load onto a C-130 transport. Flight time to jump point is approximately 6 hours. That gives us time to pre-breathe oxygen equipment, checks final mission brief. At H-30 minutes, we hit the red light. Final equipment check. Oxygen flow confirmed. Weapons safed. Radio checks. Each operator confirms ready status. At H-5 minutes, green light. Jump door opens. We're on a 10-second interval between jumpers. I go first. Establish the track. You follow my IR strobe. We maintain formation during freefall deploy within visual range of each other, land within 50 meters. Upon landing, immediate rally point, weapons hot, perimeter security, then we move. 8 kilometers overland to the compound. 2-hour movement window. We use night vision thermal blankets to mask heat signatures. We avoid all contact. This is stealth all the way to target. At 0200, I enter through the drainage culvert. Alone. You establish overwatch positions. Brennan takes the sniper hide 400 meters out. Sullivan and Callahan maintain perimeter security. I have 18 minutes inside. If I'm not out in 18 minutes, you assume I'm compromised and abort. No rescue attempt, no heroics. You exfil and report mission failure to the Admiral. No. Sullivan's voice was hard. We don't leave people. You do if I order it. This mission only works if we maintain discipline. If you come in after me and blow the operation, Garrett dies anyway. Better one loss than all of us. The room was tense. No one liked it, but they understood it. Carver broke the silence. What's the exfil plan? Evelyn indicated the map. Once I extract Garrett, we move to the coast. 15 kilometers overland. Rib boat waiting offshore. Navy Spec Ops crew people, Admiral Carver trusts. They extract us to a submarine waiting in international waters. From there, we're home. That's a long walk while carrying a wounded man and being pursued by hostiles, Callahan observed. Yes, which is why we need to move fast and stay ahead of pursuit. Brennan provides rear security, long-range precision fire to slow down anyone following. Sullivan rigs delay charges, Claymore mines on likely pursuit routes. We make them pay for every meter they chase us. She looked at each of them in turn. This is not a sanctioned mission. If we're captured, the United States government will disavow any knowledge. We'll be tried as spies or terrorists. No prisoner exchange, no diplomatic solution. Just us and whatever they decide to do to us. If we fail, Project Sentinel gets exposed. Every operator still alive becomes a target. Admiral Carver faces court-martial. His career ends, possibly his freedom. So we don't fail, Brennan said simply. We don't fail, Evelyn agreed. Carver stepped forward. I've arranged for the C-130 transport. The crew thinks this is a training exercise. They'll drop you and ask no questions. The submarine is USS Oklahoma City. Captain owes me his career. He'll be waiting at the extraction point. The RIB crew is pulled from SEAL Team 7. Good men, discreet. Beyond that, you're on your own. No air support, no backup, no rescue. You'll be operating in denied territory with no official cover. If this goes wrong, I can't protect you. Understood, sir, Evelyn said. Sullivan leaned back, studying the plan with a critical eye. Then he frowned. One question, Captain. Why now? You've had 4 years. Why wait until there's only a 2-week window? Why cut it so close? Evelyn met his gaze steadily. Because for 3.5 years, I didn't know he was alive. I thought Garrett died in Syria with the others. It took me 18 months to even pick up the first hint that maybe possibly he'd been captured. Another year to confirm it. Another 6 months to locate him and gather enough intelligence to make a rescue feasible. I haven't been sitting idle, Senior Chief. I've been hunting, gathering intel, building a network of sources, learning everything I could about that facility and its security. This isn't a rush job. This is 4 years of preparation coming together in a 2-week execution window. Sullivan nodded slowly, satisfied. But then something changed in his expression. A flicker of something. Doubt, conflict. It passed so quickly, Evelyn almost missed it. Senior Chief, she asked, something on your mind? He hesitated, just a fraction of a second, then shook his head. No, ma'am, just thinking about my family. What this means if things go wrong. If you need to step back, no. His voice was firm. I'm in, all the way. Just needed a moment to process what we're really doing. Evelyn studied him. Something felt off, but she couldn't identify what, and they didn't have time for doubt. We launch in 12 hours, she said. Get your gear sorted. Get your head sorted. Rest if you can. At 2200 tomorrow, we're wheels up. After that, there's no turning back. The team dispersed. Sullivan left first, then Brennan and Callahan talking quietly about equipment loadouts. Carver and Evelyn remained. You did well, he said quietly. They trust you. That's not easy to earn. They don't trust me yet. They trust that I know what I'm doing. Trust comes later, after I prove I can bring them home. You will. You don't know that. I do, because you're the best tactical operator I've ever trained. Because you have something to prove. Because you're not doing this for glory or recognition. You're doing it because it's right. That makes you dangerous. Evelyn was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question that had been weighing on her. Admiral, why did you really erase me, the truth this time? Carver's expression was pained. I told you, political pressure, the purge, protecting what I could. That's not all of it. He sighed, sat down heavily, suddenly looking every one of his 64 years. You're right, that's not all of it. He stared at his hands. When you came back from Syria, when I saw what had happened to you, to your team, I saw my own failure. I sent you in on bad intel. I prioritized the mission over your safety, and good men died because of it. I couldn't face that, couldn't face you. Every time I looked at you, I saw Cole taking that RPG, saw Preacher being captured, saw my decisions coming home to roost. So I erased you, not just to protect you, but to protect myself from the reminder, from the guilt, from having to look into the eyes of the one person who surrendered and know that I'd failed her. He looked up at her. I'm sorry for all of it, for sending you into hell, for abandoning you afterward, for choosing my comfort over your truth. Evelyn was quiet, processing. Then she pulled out a chair and sat across from him. Cole's death wasn't your fault, Admiral. He saw the RPG, saw it would hit me, and made a choice. That was his decision, his sacrifice. Preacher ordered me to save Garrett. That was his choice. I'm the one who listened. I'm the one who left him. That's on me. We all made choices that day. Some of us died for them, some of us lived with them. Neither is easier than the other. She stood. But here's what matters now. We have a chance to make one thing right. to bring Garrett home, to honor what Cole and Preacher gave, not by erasing the past, but by refusing to repeat it. Carver stood as well, extended his hand. Then let's make it right. They shook, a promise, an oath, a commitment to see this through no matter the cost. Evelyn left Building 7 and walked into the night. The rain had stopped. Stars were visible between the clouds. The air smelled clean, fresh, like the world had been washed and was starting over. She thought about Cole, about Preacher, about Garrett somewhere in a cell holding on, waiting, hoping. "I'm coming," she whispered to the stars. "Hold on just a little longer. I'm coming." Somewhere in the darkness, Ryan Sullivan made a phone call. His voice was low, conflicted. "It's happening. 12 hours. They're coming for Blackwood." The voice on the other end was emotionless. "Understood. Let them come. We'll be ready. I have a daughter. You promised. Your daughter is safe as long as you do what we agreed. Just let them walk into the compound. After that, it's out of your hands." Sullivan closed his eyes. "God forgive me." He ended the call, stood alone in the darkness, a man caught between impossible choices, between loyalty and love, between duty and desperation. He'd made his decision months ago when they'd taken his daughter, when they'd sent him proof of life and told him exactly what he needed to do to keep her breathing. Now he had to live with it. 12 hours until wheels up. 12 hours until he betrayed everyone who trusted him. 12 hours until good people walked into a trap because he'd sold them out to save the one person who mattered more than honor. He thought about his daughter's smile, about her laugh, about the way she called him daddy like he was a hero. Some heroes betrayed their brothers to save their children. He'd have to live with being that kind of hero. The countdown had begun, and none of them except Sullivan knew that the mission was compromised before it even started. The C-130's cargo hold smelled of hydraulic fluid and old canvas, the kind of smell that soaked into military equipment over decades and never quite left. 4 operators sat along the webbing seats checking equipment for the 100th time. Checking because equipment failure at 28,000 feet meant death. Checking because it gave their hands something to do besides shake. The aircraft's engines droned at a pitch that made conversation difficult. Not that anyone was talking much. This close to the drop words felt superfluous. Each man lost in his own thoughts, his own fears, his own understanding of what they were about to attempt. Evelyn sat closest to the jump door, running through the plan again in her mind. Every detail, every contingency, every second of the 18-minute window mapped out like a choreographed dance where one misstep meant everyone died. She thought about Garrett, wondered what 4 years of captivity had done to him. If he'd still be the same man she dragged out of Syria. If the torture had broken something fundamental. If he'd even be able to walk when she found him. Didn't matter. She'd carry him if necessary. Drag him if that's what it took. She hadn't come this far to leave without him. The loadmaster appeared, making his way down the hold. He gave the 10-minute signal. Time to pre-breathe pure oxygen. At 28,000 feet, the air was too thin to sustain consciousness. Jump without proper oxygen saturation, and you'd pass out during freefall. Wake up dead if you woke up at all. Each operator connected their oxygen hose. The flow started, 4 liters per minute of pure O2 flushing nitrogen from their bloodstream, preventing the bends, preventing hypoxia, preventing the 100 ways that altitude could kill you before you ever left the aircraft. Evelyn checked her altimeter, her Jeeps, her reserve chute, her primary chute, her oxygen flow indicator. Every piece of equipment that stood between her and oblivion. All green, all functional, it's all ready. She looked at her team. Callahan methodically checking his medical kit. Brennan test-firing his rifle's action, ensuring the cold hadn't seized the mechanism. Sullivan sitting very still, staring at nothing, lost somewhere inside his own head. Something about Sullivan bothered her. Had bothered her since the briefing. The way he'd hesitated, the way he'd mentioned his family, the way his eyes wouldn't quite meet hers when they'd loaded onto the aircraft. She pushed the thought aside. Too late for doubt now. Too late for second-guessing. They were committed. The only way out was through. The loadmaster returned. 5-minute warning. Red light illuminated above the jump door. Final equipment check. Each operator inspecting the man next to him, looking for loose straps, disconnected gear, anything that could fail. Brennan checked Evelyn's rig. She checked Sullivan's. Callahan checked Brennan's. Sullivan checked Callahan's. A chain of mutual dependence. Your life in someone else's hands. Their life in yours. All green, already. The red light cast everything in a crimson glow, like the inside of a heart, like being swallowed by something vast and hungry. 3 minutes. Evelyn stood, moved to the jump door. The others formed up behind her. Single file, ready to exit on her signal. The loadmaster opened the door. The world exploded with sound and wind. The slipstream tore at her, trying to rip her out before she was ready. The temperature inside the hold plummeted. Minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit outside. The kind of cold that didn't just chill, it burned. She looked out into darkness. 28,000 feet below the earth was invisible. Just blackness and stars in the thin line of horizon where the two met. She was about to fall into nothing, about to trust physics and fabric and training to keep her alive. 2 minutes. She thought about Cole, the way he'd stepped in front of that RPG without hesitation, the way he'd died so she could live. She thought about Preacher, his last words, his last look, the forgiveness in his eyes even as she left him behind. This jump was for them. This mission was for them. Everything she'd become in the 4 years since Syria was because they'd paid a price she couldn't repay. But she could honor it. She could finish what they'd started. She could bring Garrett home. 1 minute. The loadmaster held up one finger. Evelyn's hand went to her chest, checking one last time that her ripcord was accessible, that her reserve handle was clear, that every life-saving device was exactly where muscle memory expected it to be. 30 seconds. She moved to the edge, toes over the ramp, wind screaming past, the void calling. She didn't look back at her team, didn't need to. Either they were ready or they weren't. Either they'd follow or they wouldn't. She'd find out in about 10 seconds. The light changed from red to green. Evelyn stepped into nothing. The wind hit her like a physical thing, tore the breath from her lungs, spun her for half a second before training took over and she arched, stabilizing. Arms out, legs spread, falling at terminal velocity toward the earth she couldn't see. 1001, 1002, 1003. Behind her, 3 more bodies tumbled into the void. She couldn't see them yet, couldn't hear anything but wind. But the weight on her back told her they were there, the IR strobe on her helmet marking her position. Trust that they'd find her. Trust that they'd form up. 15 seconds into the fall, Brennan appeared on her left, tracking her through the darkness. Then Callahan on her right. Then Sullivan below and behind, all 4 operators falling together. A formation held together by skill and faith and the shared understanding that separation meant death. The altimeter on her wrist glowed green in the darkness. 26,000 feet, 24,000, 22,000, falling at 120 miles per hour. The earth rushing up to meet them even though they couldn't see it yet. Evelyn watched the numbers tick down. Watched the GPS track their position. Watched the wind drift them exactly as she'd calculated. 3,700 feet west of their intended freefall endpoint. The numbers matching her predictions within meters. She'd done the math right. Now she had to hope physics agreed. 18,000 feet, 16,000, 14,000. The darkness below began to take shape. Terrain features emerging from blackness. Mountains, valleys, the thin ribbon of a road cutting through wilderness. The target compound still invisible but getting closer with every second. 10,000 feet, 8,000, 6,000. Evelyn's hand moved to her ripcord handle. Not yet, not yet. Wait for the exact altitude. Deploy too high and you're visible for too long. Deploy too low and you don't have time to fix malfunctions before you crater. 4,000 feet, 3,500. Now, she pulled. The pilot chute deployed, dragged the main canopy out of her pack. She felt the tug, the opening shock, the sudden deceleration from terminal velocity to 15 miles per hour, like hitting a wall made of air. Above her, the MC-6 canopy blossomed, black fabric against black sky, nearly invisible. She grabbed the toggles, checked the canopy for malfunctions. All good. Full flight. Controllable. Around her, 3 more canopies deployed. Brennan, Callahan, Sullivan, all good deployments, all flying, all tracking toward the landing zone she'd marked on their GPS units. The ground was visible now, rising up in shades of gray, mountains becoming real, trees taking shape. The landing zone, a small clearing marked by her GPS as a glowing waypoint. She flew the canopy like she'd done it 1,000 times, because she had, spiraling down, trading altitude for position. The wind pushing her exactly where she needed to go. 200 feet, 100 feet, 50 feet. She flared the canopy, converting forward speed into lift. Touchdown soft. Feet, knees roll. Combat landing. Up immediately, hand on her rifle, scanning for threats. Nothing. Clear. Brennan landed 10 meters to her left. Then Callahan, then Sullivan. Rally point. 30 seconds. Weapons hot. Perimeter established. They'd made it. Phase 1 complete. Now came the hard part. Evelyn checked her GPS, 8 kilometers to the compound. 2 hours to cover it. She looked at her team, made eye contact with each. Ready, 3 nods. Move. They ghosted through the forest like smoke. Night vision turning the darkness into shades of green. Each step placed carefully. Each movement measured. Sound discipline absolute. This was where training mattered, where 1,000 hours of practice made the difference between invisible and dead. They moved in a tactical column. Evelyn on point, Brennan second covering their 6 with the sniper rifle, Callahan third medical kit and close-range weapons, Sullivan last demolitions and heavy firepower. An hour into the movement, they encountered the first patrol, 4 hostiles moving along a road 200 meters to their east. Evelyn raised her fist. Freeze. The team melted into the ground, becoming part of the terrain. The patrol passed, unaware that 4 American operators lay within rifle range, unaware how close they'd come to dying. The patrol passed. Evelyn waited 10 minutes, making sure they were truly gone, then moved again. Another hour. The compound appeared through the trees, exactly where the intelligence said it would be. Guard towers, perimeter fence, roving patrols, everything matching the satellite imagery. Evelyn checked her watch. 01:45. 15 minutes until the shift change. 15 minutes until the 18-minute window opened. She turned to her team. Hand signals. Brennan established sniper position 400 meters north. Callahan, Sullivan perimeter security 200 meters south. I enter at 0200. If I'm not out in 18 minutes, abort and exfil. Brennan moved first, disappearing into the darkness with his rifle, finding the position he'd identified from the satellite imagery, settling in, becoming invisible. Callahan and Sullivan moved to their positions, set up, waited. Evelyn moved to the drainage culvert, 28 inches in diameter, barely large enough for her with full kit. She stripped down to essential gear. Rifle across her back, sidearm on her hip, knife, radio, minimal load, maximum mobility. 01:58, 2 minutes. She stared at the culvert entrance, at the darkness beyond, at the point of no return. She thought about Garrett, about holding on for 4 years, about waiting for someone to come, about the faith that maybe, just maybe, someone still gave a damn. I'm coming, brother. Hold on. 0200, she entered the culvert. The space was claustrophobic, dark. Water dripped from somewhere above. The smell was concrete and rust and stagnant water. She low-crawled through the tunnel, pulling herself forward with her elbows. Rifle dragging beneath her. Every sound amplified in the enclosed space. 30 meters through absolute darkness. 30 meters where one wrong sound could alert the guards. 30 meters where backup couldn't reach her if things went wrong. She emerged in a maintenance area beneath the main compound, exactly where the intelligence said she would. Good intel so far. That worried her. Intel was never this good. Something felt wrong. She moved through the basement level, past machinery, past storage rooms, following the mental map she'd memorized from the satellite imagery and intercepted facility blueprints. The cell blocks were 1 level up. She found the stairs, moved up slowly, knife in hand. If she encountered a guard, it had to be silent. 1 gunshot and the entire compound would wake up. Top of the stairs, long corridor, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, cell doors every 10 feet. metal, reinforced, small windows at eye level. She moved down the corridor, checking each cell. Most were empty. Two held prisoners she didn't recognize. Then the last cell on the right. She looked through the window. Garrett Blackwood sat on the concrete floor back against the wall. He was thin, emaciated. His face was bruised. His hands showed signs of torture, but his eyes were alert, alive, unbroken. He looked up, saw her face in the window. His eyes widened, disbelief, recognition, something that might have been hope. She worked the lock. 30 seconds of careful manipulation. The door opened. She entered. Garrett tried to stand but couldn't quite manage it. She knelt beside him. "Ghost," he whispered. His voice was rough, damaged. "You came." "Always," she said. "Can you walk?" He tried, managed to get halfway up before his legs gave out. 4 years of captivity, 4 years of torture, 4 years of malnutrition. His body was broken even if his mind wasn't. "I'll carry you if I have to." But then Garrett's expression changed. Fear replaced hope. He grabbed her arm. "Ghost, this is a trap. They've been waiting for a rescue attempt. You need to abort, now." The words hit her like ice water. "What?" "They knew someone would come. They've been planning for it. The compound, it's designed to lure and rescue teams and eliminate them. You have to get out." Evelyn's mind raced. The good intel, the perfect satellite imagery, the convenient drainage culvert. It all made sense now. They'd been set up. She keyed her radio. "Hawk Doc demo. Mission is compromised. We're walking into an ambush. Abort and..." The radio crackled. Then Sullivan's voice tight with something that wasn't quite right. "Ghost, we can't abort. We're already committed." And that's when Evelyn understood. The way Sullivan had hesitated. The way he wouldn't meet her eyes. The phone call she'd sensed but not seen. "Sullivan, what did you do?" Silence on the radio. Then quietly, "They have my daughter. I didn't have a choice." The corridor lights blazed bright. Alarms wailed. The trap had been sprung. "I'm sorry," Sullivan said. "God, I'm so sorry." Evelyn grabbed Garrett, hauled him up. "We're leaving. Now." But the corridor was already filling with hostiles. Weapons raised, shouting in a language she didn't need to translate to understand. Surrender or die. She keyed the radio one more time. "Brennan Callahan, I need a distraction. Big one. Give me chaos." Brennan's voice came back immediately. "On it." Through the wall, she heard the first shot. Brennan's rifle. The distinctive crack of a .338 Lapua round traveling at supersonic velocity. Then another. Then another. Precise. Measured. Death delivered from 400 meters away. Then explosions. Sullivan, despite his betrayal, doing the one thing he could do to make amends. Detonating every charge he'd brought. Creating chaos. The guards in the corridor turned confused, responding to threats from outside. Evelyn didn't waste the opportunity. She fired. Suppressed rounds. Double-tapped to center mass. First guard down. Second guard down. Third guard taking cover. She put 2 rounds through the wall where he was hiding. Heard the sound of body hitting floor. She pulled Garrett forward. He tried to help, tried to move on his own, but 4 years had stolen his strength. She half-carried, half-dragged him toward the stairs. Behind them, more guards poured into the corridor. She fired without looking, suppressing, buying seconds, each second costing ammunition she couldn't spare. They reached the stairs. She descended fast, Garrett stumbling beside her, his weight against her shoulder, his labored breathing in her ear, the sound of pursuit echoing from above. The basement, the drainage culvert, 30 meters of crawling while enemies closed in. Impossible. She'd never make it carrying Garrett. She keyed the radio again. "I need evac at my position. Culvert exit south side. I can't extract alone." Callahan's voice, "Moving to you, 30 seconds." She dragged Garrett into the culvert, started crawling backward, pulling him behind her, her rifle across her chest, firing back up the corridor, muzzle flash in the darkness, brass ejecting into water. The sounds of her own desperation, 20 meters, 15 meters, 10 meters. She emerged from the culvert. Callahan was there, reaching in, grabbing Garrett, pulling him out. Strong hands. Combat medic's efficiency. He's hypothermic. malnourished, multiple injuries. We need to move fast or he won't survive the exfil. Evelyn looked back at the compound. Lights everywhere, alarms screaming, guards mobilizing. The quick reaction force would be here in minutes. Sullivan appeared from the tree line. His face was anguished, destroyed. I didn't know they'd activate the trap tonight. I thought I'd have time to warn you. To fix it, Save it, Evelyn said. Can you walk? He nodded. Then help Callahan carry Garrett. We move now, 15 kilometers to the coast. If we're not at the exfil point in 3 hours, the submarine leaves without us. They started moving. Brennan appeared from his hide position. QRF is mobilizing, approximately 30 hostiles, 5 minutes behind us. Then we make them pay for every meter. They move fast as Garrett's condition allowed, which wasn't fast enough. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew closer, organized, professional. These weren't random guards. This was a trained unit. Brennan stopped. I'll slow them down, buy you 5 minutes. Don't be a hero. I'm a sniper, Captain. This is what I do. He moved to a hide position overlooking their back trail. Settled in, breathing slowed, rifle steadied. The first pursuer appeared 400 meters back. Brennan squeezed the trigger. The rifle bucked. 400 meters away, a man dropped, dead before he heard the shot. Brennan worked the bolt, acquired the second target, fired. Another drop. The pursuit stopped taking cover, trying to locate the sniper. Brennan gave them 2 more rounds, 2 more casualties. Then he moved, relocating before they could pinpoint his position. Evelyn and the others kept pushing forward, Garrett between Sullivan and Callahan being carried more than walking. His breathing was labored. His skin was cold. Hypothermia setting in. They reached a river, chest deep, freezing. The kind of cold that stopped your heart if you stayed in too long. No choice. They had to cross. Evelyn went first, testing the current, strong but manageable. She crossed, established security on the far bank, then signaled the others. Sullivan and Callahan carried Garrett across. The cold water hit him, and he gasped. His body temperature, already critically low, plummeted further. By the time they reached the far bank, he was shaking uncontrollably. Early-stage hypothermia. Callahan worked fast, stripped Garrett's wet clothes, wrapped him in a thermal blanket, activated chemical heat packs, placed them at Garrett's core, armpits, groin, anywhere that would warm the blood before it circulated to vital organs. We need to stop. Let him warm up. Another hour in this condition and he'll go into cardiac arrest. We can't stop. The pursuit is 10 minutes behind. Then he dies before we reach the coast. Evelyn made the calculation, the impossible math of triage. Save 1 man and risk everyone. Push forward and guarantee 1 death to possibly save 4. She thought about Syria, about leaving Preacher, about the choice that had haunted her for 4 years. Not again. Never again. We hold here, 15 minutes, warm him up enough to survive. Then we move. She looked at Sullivan. You want to make amends? Go set charges on the far side of the river. Make them pay for crossing. Sullivan nodded, moved back to the riverbank, started rigging claymore mines. M18A1, 700 steel balls per mine, 50-meter kill radius. He placed 3 of them, overlapping fields of fire, covering the crossing point. Brennan arrived, moving fast. They're 2 minutes out. We need to. Garrett saw the situation. Understood. Right, I'll hold them here. He took position behind a fallen tree. Rifle rested, breathing controlled. The first pursuers appeared on the far bank. Brennan's rifle spoke. 1 down, 2 down. The others took cover. But they kept coming. Professional, organized, using fire and maneuver, advancing under covering fire. These weren't amateurs. Sullivan finished setting the claymores, ran back to the position. Charges set. I can detonate when they're in the kill zone. The first pursuers reached the riverbank, started to cross. Sullivan watched them come, counting, waiting for the maximum number to enter the water. 5 hostiles in the river, then 10, then 15. Now, Evelyn said. Sullivan triggered the claymores. The explosions were simultaneous, overlapping. The river erupted in steel and fire. Bodies were torn apart. The water turned red. Screams cut short. The ones who survived the initial blast tried to retreat only to be cut down by Brennan's precision fire. But then Brennan's voice cracked through the radio. "I'm hit. Can't move. They're flanking my position." Before Evelyn could respond, Sullivan was moving, running back toward the river, toward the enemy position. "Sullivan, what are you? I put you all here," he said. "I'm getting you out." He reached Brennan's position. The sniper was down, tourniquet on his leg, trying to drag himself to cover. Sullivan grabbed him, threw him over his shoulder in a fireman's carry. Enemy fire erupted. Rounds impacted around Sullivan. He didn't stop, didn't drop Brennan, just ran. A round caught him in the shoulder. He stumbled, kept moving. Another round through his calf. He fell to one knee, pushed back up, kept going. He made it to their position, dropped Brennan beside Callahan. Collapsed. "Get him patched," Sullivan gasped, blood pouring from his wounds. "Then get out of here." Evelyn looked at him, saw the pain, the determination. The man trying to die, earning back what he'd lost. "Callahan, work on both of them. We're not leaving anyone, not today." "That'll slow them," Brennan said. "Maybe 20 minutes before they regroup and find another crossing point." 20 minutes. Evelyn checked Garrett. His shaking head reduced. His core temperature was rising. Not good, but better. Survivable. "We move. Callahan, how's he doing?" "He'll make it. Maybe. If we get him to the submarine in the next 2 hours." They pushed on. Garrett now conscious enough to half walk with support. The coast appeared ahead. 3 kilometers, 2 kilometers, 1 kilometer. The beach, gray sand, waves crashing. And offshore, exactly where it was supposed to be, a rib boat with Navy spec ops crew. They'd made it. Evelyn keyed the radio. "Rattlesnake, this is Ghost. We're at the exfil point. I say again, we are at the exfil point." Carver's voice came back, relief evident even through the static. "Ghost, this is Rattlesnake. We have you on radar. The boat is inbound. 30 seconds. But behind them, the pursuit had regrouped. Hostiles burst from the tree line. Weapons firing, rounds impacting the sand around them. Brennan went to one knee, returned fire, precise shots. Buying time. Sullivan joined him. Callahan dragged Garrett toward the water. The rib boat hit the beach. Navy crew members jumped out, weapons raised, providing covering fire. "Load up! Move, move, move!" Callahan and Sullivan carried Garrett into the boat. Brennan laid down, suppressing fire, then sprinted for the water. Evelyn covered him, firing until her magazine was empty. Then she ran. Rounds kicked up sand around her feet. Close, too close, she dove into the water as a burst of fire passed through where she'd been standing a half second before. Strong hands pulled her into the boat. The engines roared. They pushed off the beach. A rocket-propelled grenade launched from the tree line, arced toward them. The coxswain saw it turn hard. The RPG passed 3 meters from the boat, impacted the water behind them, exploded in a geyser of spray. Then they were out of range, moving at 40 knots, the beach receding behind them. Evelyn collapsed in the bottom of the boat, breathing hard, every muscle shaking with adrenaline crash. She looked at her team. Brennan, rifle across his lap, checking it for damage from the salt water. Callahan working on Garrett, starting an IV, monitoring his vitals. Sullivan sitting apart from the others, staring at nothing. And Garrett, alive. Broken, but alive. Conscious, but barely. His eyes found hers. "You came back," he whispered. "I told you I would." "Cole, Preacher, are they?" She shook her head, didn't trust her voice. Garrett closed his eyes. "Then it's just us." "Just us," she agreed. The submarine appeared ahead. USS Oklahoma City, black shape on black water. The coming tower emerging like some ancient beast. The rib pulled alongside. The team transferred to the sub, down the hatch, into the pressure hull, into safety. The submarine dove, disappearing into the deep, leaving no trace that they had ever been there. 72 hours later, they surfaced in U.S. territorial waters. A helicopter waited. Medical team standing by. Garrett was transferred immediately. Critical condition, but stable. He'd live. Probably. Evelyn stood on the deck watching the helicopter disappear toward the mainland, toward hospitals and debriefs, and all the complicated aftermath of what they'd done. Admiral Carver found her there. He looked older, tired, like the last 3 days had aged him a decade. It's done, he said quietly. Garrett's alive. You did it. We did it, all of us. Not all of you. He looked at Sullivan, who stood at the far end of the deck, isolated. What do we do about him? Evelyn was quiet for a moment. He made a choice, a father's choice. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. He betrayed us, but then he saved us. He used his charges to give us the chaos we needed to escape. He carried Garrett when his own guilt probably wanted him to run. So we don't hang him. We let him go home to his daughter, and we make damn sure she never knows what he did to keep her safe. Carver nodded. You're more forgiving than I'd be. I'm not forgiving. I'm understanding. There's a difference. I'll never trust him again, never work with him again, but I won't destroy him either. He's already destroyed himself. That's punishment enough. They stood in silence, watching the ocean, watching the sun rise over the horizon. I've been court-martialed, Carver said. Reduced in rank, forced retirement, effective immediately. I'm sorry, Throne. Don't be, I got my people home. I'd do it again. He paused. They want to reinstate you, official recognition, make you a hero, put you in front of Congress, the whole show. No. I told them you'd say that. I'm more effective as a ghost. Official operators get recognition. Ghosts get results. There are more people out there like Garrett, more people who need someone who doesn't exist to come for them. You're choosing to stay erased. I'm choosing to stay effective. Carver reached into his jacket, pulled out a small box. Then take this at least. She opened it. Inside was a gold trident pin, real gold, heavy, the kind given to operators who'd earned it through blood and sacrifice. No records, Carver said, no official recognition. But this says what paper never could. You earned it 8 years ago. You've earned it every day since. And you sure as hell earned it in the last 72 hours. Evelyn took the pin, felt its weight, felt everything it represented. Thank you, Admiral. Thank you, Captain, for reminding me what honor means, for showing me that sometimes the right thing and the legal thing aren't the same, for bringing our people home. He saluted. She returned it, one last time. Then he turned and walked away. Walking toward retirement, toward the end of a 42-year career, toward whatever came next for a man who'd sacrificed everything for the people under his command. 6 months later, Naval Base Coronado, training compound. Hell Week in progress. A young woman 22 years old was in the surf, hypothermic, shaking, at the edge of breaking. The instructors were in her face, yelling, demanding she quit, demanding she ring the bell and end the pain. She was close, so close to giving up. From the beach, a figure watched. A woman in civilian clothes, leather jacket, coffee in hand, watching the training like she'd seen it before, like she'd lived it. The young woman in the surf looked up, saw the stranger. Their eyes met across the distance. The stranger gave the slightest nod. Keep going, you've got this. The young woman found something inside herself, something she didn't know was there. She stood up straighter, stopped shaking, looked the instructor in the eye. I'm not quitting. The instructor studied her, then nodded. Respect grudging, but real. Get back in formation. The young woman returned to her place. The evolution continued. The stranger on the beach turned to leave. A nearby instructor, Old SEAL, seasoned, watched her go. Who is that? A younger instructor asked. The Old SEAL was quiet for a moment. Nobody, and that's exactly why she's the most dangerous operator you'll never hear about. I don't understand. You're not supposed to, but that woman, she's proof that the best operators are the ones whose names will never be known, whose files have been redacted, whose sacrifices live only in the memories of those who serve beside them. He watched the stranger disappear into the morning fog. Some heroes get parades, the best ones get forgotten, and they wouldn't want it any other way. Evelyn Thorne walked into the farm, walked into obscurity, walked into the life she'd chosen, the life of a ghost. Behind her, a new generation was learning what it meant to serve, what it cost to be a SEAL, what it took to become someone who would never quit, never ring the bell, never leave a teammate behind. She thought about Cole, about Preacher, about Garrett recovering in a hospital somewhere, probably wondering if the rescue had been worth the cost. It had been. Every moment, every sacrifice, every choice. She'd brought him home. She'd honored the dead by refusing to add to their number. She'd proven that ghosts could bleed, could cry, could feel the weight of impossible choices, but they never ever stopped moving forward. Some truths didn't need headlines. They only needed to be remembered by the ones who knew. And in the spaces between official records, in the gaps where classified documents had been redacted in the silence that followed, impossible missions, her truth lived. She was Ghost. She was Sentinel. She was the operator who didn't exist, but who would always come when called. And somewhere out there, someone else was waiting. Someone else who needed a ghost to walk through walls and bring them home. She'd find them. She always did. The fog swallowed her. The beach fell silent. The waves continued their eternal rhythm, and the ghost walked on.